Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got another great Thursday evening. First up, of course, as always, another exciting round of Coach's Corner, and then a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be joined by a good friend of mine, Meredith Kirk. She's an LPGA teacher professional as well as an author, and the former Mrs. South Carolina in 2014. She'll be joining on the second half, but I got two great gentlemen coming up here in just a minute. But let me just very quickly read out just a few points that I want to get across before I bring my buddies on here for Coach's Corner this evening. As I mentioned, always, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or that's 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast. Go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the main page. And, of course, the live broadcast will be right there at the top. And if you can't join us live, not a problem. The shows are all auto-recorded. Just scroll down into the on-demand section at that link, blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and you can check us out in the on-demand section. Always welcome. Would love to take your calls here on the show at area code 646-716-4667, or you can email questions or comments to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Always update, of course, on social media at facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. As well as on Twitter. My Twitter handle, of course, is Ted and Buck CEO. Thank you for all of the recent followers as well on Twitter. As I mentioned, I got two great guys. They've been on here many times on the show. Always excited to have these two guys on. Clint Wright and Pete Buchanan. Let me just tell you a little bit about the two of them, and then I'll bring them out. We'll get into some discussion tonight about our favorite sport, golf. Clint Wright, of course, is a 30-year member of the PGA. He's a partner at TGM Golf, and he's a big proponent of the R3 approach, and he's among one of my favorite guests. And right beside him, of course, is Pete Buchanan, also one of my favorite guests, founder, director of instruction, and owner of the Plain Simple Golf, LLC. Plain Simple Golf, of course, houses the Plain Simple Golf Circuit and Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. And together, they've got 60 years combined experience. So that's a lot of experience in this industry. Well, guys, welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here. We may be getting so old we've forgotten everything we know. I'm not sure.
Well, I was just...
That may not be a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm not quite at the 30-year mark myself yet, but I figure once we get there, we'll have 90 between the three of us, and that's pushing 100. So we're getting up there, guys.
Oh, we're there. We're there.
Yeah. I'm sure if we added our ages up, we'd be well over 100. But anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Always love having you guys on the Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live. And for the next little while, for those of you tuning in live, sit back, relax, and enjoy what we're going to talk about tonight. Some of these talking points I actually did on another show, but I want to do them tonight, especially with you two guys on here, because I know we'll get some great answers, as always I do on the show. First question, and I'm going to start Pete this time. Clint, I know I always start with you, but I'm going to give, since Pete's right up there as well, I'm going to give you a rest this panel discussion and start with Pete first tonight. There's a lot of misconceptions or misunderstandings, I guess, or misnomers, however you want to phrase it, about the golf swing. In your mind, Pete, what are some of the misconceptions that some of our amateur golfers have about the golf swing in general? What don't they get? What do they get confused about, do you think, with some of the applications of the golf swing?
Well, I think probably the biggest one many of them don't get is they don't understand the relationship between the club and the ball, impact, and, what the impact's going to tell them. They can see the ball fly out there, but they don't have any idea why it's doing what it's doing. And then,
right.
Usually as an amateur, their reaction is the exact opposite of what they should do. And so they only compound the problem and make it worse. And I think a lot of times, too, there's so much information out there today, they can get a little bit lost, I would say, in the forest for the trees. And, there's so many things they're trying to do with, different body applications, different arm swings, different biomechanics, and all of this information is great. But I think at times today, especially in a lot of the players that I talk to, I ask them, first of all, what they're trying to do, and usually it has nothing to do with what they're trying to hit. And then I ask them, why are you trying to do this? They said, well, we've been reading all this stuff, and, we figure we're getting behind because all these guys are doing all these things, and, I'm trying to move this and move that and turn and distance. And I'm like, well, let's go back to the basics. I said, let's get the club and the ball together first, and then you'll probably find that 90% of those things that you're reading are going to happen anyway. So I think for me the biggest thing, and especially it's been great for me the last few weekends I've been playing with, actually it's been a few months, my son on the weekends. We've been playing down at this little local municipal golf course, and it's been fun just watching these amateurs and then talking to them when they're done. And, it's not that, they sliced a couple right and they sliced a couple left. I mean, the contact is just so poor. And, it's no fault of anybody's but the fact that they just haven't practiced or had the right ideas to do it. And I think when you just give them the basic fundamentals of impact and understand the relationship between the club and the ball, it makes it so much easier. And I think that takes a lot of that confusion out. And I think it opens their mind to see, it's not that difficult. I mean, the game's hard to play at times, but at least hitting it shouldn't be that hard. So I think, to me, the club and ball relationship is the big one for me.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that was pretty much the answer we got the last time when this question was posed to the panel that night. I think John Hughes was on the panel that night, also another one of my favorite guys on the show. Clint, Pete brings up a great point. The average golfer doesn't really seem to focus on impact and how the importance of that position. They're focusing on, does my swing look right? Am I getting into the slot right? Am I, so on and so forth. And there's a million variables there. What's your take on this as well? What are, from your experience, what are you seeing a lot of the amateurs are just not understanding?
Well, there's a couple of things, really. I can't say it much better than Pete said some parts of it. The one thing that we see is both teachers and basic club designers and fitters is they don't really understand the cause and effect of their equipment very well. Mm-hmm. We get guys that come in hitting low fades and thinks their club's too flexible. Right. In reality, it's too stiff. They don't get the connections between it because they're slicing it. If they're hooking it, they think that, just totally misconception on the cause and effect of how the shaft is affecting the club face. Again, like Pete said, they don't understand that relationship of the club face to impact. And one of the things that we also think, I think is a big one, is that most amateur players think they're totally responsible for how far the ball goes.
Right.
Okay? Because I use a drill that asks a person just simply to make impact with the ball. I don't want them to swing hard. I want them to swing easy. I want them just to hit. It's a ball and stick game. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. All right? And I just want you to make impact with the stick to the ball. And then I ask them, where did that distance come from? And, they have that deer in the headlight look. Well, I don't know. They catch everything except where it really came from, and that it's built in.
Right.
If you take the ball and drop it on a sidewalk, it bounces. The bounce is built in.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they don't understand the relationship to club speed and what makes the ball go certain distances. And to Pete's point, the more that we can get them to understand that, the much better chance they have of actually making consistent contact on the ball. Because they're not lifting themselves off the ground trying to hit it.
I can remember, and it kind of, you're exactly right, gentlemen, both some great points. It reminds me of when I was a young lad, and my father and I used to go out, and he would, give me some pointers. Now, my father was a very good golfer, and, he said to me, Ted, one of biggest flaws I see. He says, you've got a great golf swing. He says, your practice swing is one of the, among the best I've ever seen. He said, but when you get over the ball, he said, something happens. He said, you're trying to, murder the ball. And he said, if you just swing like you do in your practice swing and basically let the ball get in the way of it, he said, you're going to, and sure enough, 9 times out of 10, he was right. I mean, the ball would just go a mile with very little effort. But as soon as I tried to give a little extra juice, it just was nothing was happening the way it should be. And, of course, all kinds of misdirections. But, it goes right to your point. It's built into the ball as
and
well.
The club.
And the club.
We spend hundreds of dollars and thousands on equipment that's supposed to help us hit it further, and we get in the way.
Right. Exactly. I want to jump ahead to one of the questions I didn't get a chance to ask since you brought this up, Clint. And I'm going to start with you, and then Pete, by all means, jump in. There's actually two parts to this question, 2 different questions, but 2 parts to it, I guess. Number one is, what should the golfer look for when getting clubs for the first time? Now, I'm talking about the first-time golfer, the beginning golfer out there. What should they really be looking for the first time? And then what about the golf ball? How does the player choose the right ball for them? And there's so much. I mean, you guys know this yourself. You've been down to the PGA show, or you look on the Golf Channel. There's 1,000 golf balls out there. Talk about confusion. Talk a little bit about both of them. Let's start with the clubs first, Pete. Then you join in, and then let's circle around to the golf ball.
Okay. Well, I can only tell you what we recommend. When we have a new player come into the shop, or we're giving lessons to a new player that's got kind of hand-me-down stuff, is that we steer them towards what we call commercial-grade equipment. The old 3 and 8, a good set of entry-level clubs that are generally a store brand or house brand golf equipment that they're going to get a couple of woods, a couple of hybrids in today's world, generally about a 5-iron to a pitching wedge or sand wedge, and a good putter. And that's where we want them to start, because we feel like that it gives them good value for what they need. You will never see me recommend a new player to go out and buy a marquee set of equipment, because at that point they really don't know what they need or what's going to fit them. They need something that's going to give them a reasonable level of performance when they make contact. They don't want to go out and buy the the $149 stuff. It's not going to perform for them.
Right.
We recommend the middle grade equipment, what we used to call the old store line or commercial grade equipment. As far as the golf ball is concerned, I want them to get, we recommend buy the reconditioned balls. Get something cheap, because you're going to lose a lot of these things. Okay?
Right.
I mean, you need something that's going to hold up. Don't spend a lot of money. We actually ask them to go through the dollar ball jar here and pick out the best ones. That's all you need right now. And once you begin to have some proficiency and become more of a golfer, a player versus a beginner, then you can start making some reasonable choices on what kind of golf ball you may want based on spin rate and durability. But we try to get a person to recognize the fact that this is not an expensive game to get started in. You just need to have good level equipment and as least expensive golf ball as you can find.
Yeah. And Pete, before I let you, great answers, by the way. Pete, before I let you jump in, I just want to make a note of that, make a comment, rather, in respect to the golf balls, Clint. I was out this past weekend, and I went into one of the major chain stores. I won't tell you which one, but and they had the Pro V1 and the Pro V1X reconditioned. And, I mean, they look pretty much like they're out of the box. Right. And a dozen of those were $12. I think it was $12.99. Now brand new, they're what, $45 to $50.
That's right.
For either of the brand. And to go to your point, it just befuddles the mind why the average golfer would go out there and spend nearly $50 on and don't get me wrong, I love Titleist, they're great balls and that.
Right.
But for somebody that doesn't have the skill level yet, why they would go out if they want to play the Titleist Pro V1, go to some of your local stores that carry some of the golf equipment. Not necessarily have to be some of your major stores,
Right.
but some of the stores, and buy the X-Outs or buy the refurbished whatever you want to call it for like a third or fourth of the price. That way, if you lose a few, you don't feel
call
like
them
that.
retees. They're
Right.
called retees.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, and you want to hear something really funny? I play Callaway. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I love the Callaway ball. When the guy that would retee brings golf balls into our shop, you know what I do? I go through them and find the Callaways.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a shout out to anybody that's playing at Clint's club there. That if you can't find
You're
any
never
Callaway,
going to find a Callaway to buy because I got them all in my office.
That's right. Pete, I imagine you're probably on the same lines as Clint in your answer as well. But any other thoughts you want to add to that as well?
Well, I mean, he's right on the mark with the commercial grade equipment. I'm a little bit. I have a bonus because I have the luxury when they come to me. I don't have as many people that I see, so when I get the newer ones, I like to use, and I'll give a shout out to Maltbeach Golf Works. I use them all the time. I can put together a pretty good grade set for them, and I can actually get a decent fit for them just to make sure the length is right. I like to stay away from drivers and get some lofted woods and hybrids, something that they can get in the air off the tee. But I agree totally with Clint there on the makeup of the clubs, just to make it so something that's a medium commercial grade that they can get started with. And on the golf balls, I used to say all the time when I was with the schools, they'd ask me what golf ball I played, and I would tease them. I said I play the ones I find. They're cheaper that way.
Right.
So, but
that's good. I like that.
But I always like to. I told them, I said, well, if you're going to get golf balls, I said, you're really looking for two things. Do you want it to last a long time, or do you want it to spin more? And that's really the two things you're looking for. So if you already curve it in the air, stay away from the ones that spin more. And if you want it to last a long time, go get the ones in the box that said they go the furthest, because those are usually hard and they're going to last a long time, and you can't beat the covers off them. And don't hesitate to go to the discount store and or go into the barrel like Clint was saying. You just get some ones to start with. That's the thing. I got some younger kids that are starting to play now, and I tell them, I said, go to go to one of the retail chains and find some cheap ones to buy. That's what you want to start with. And when the course is crowded, take a few extra minutes, around the greens and the fairways. You can find all kinds of stuff, to add to your collection. But there's so many golf balls today. It's just you usually find too. I find that the more expensive the ball is, the shorter time it lasts. So,
yeah, that's true. What I have done often as well, and I don't know if either one of you have done this, but especially with some of my diehard students that just swear by a certain brand, is I'll actually mark them out so they can't tell what they're playing, and I'll throw a different brand down, and I'll just say, okay, well here, and they say, well, why is it marked out? And I said, let's play with this today, and they'll get out there and they'll hit it just as well and just as solid or not, and I said, and it'll be some cheap off the shelf brand, and I'll throw out there and think they're playing their favorite brand that normally they're paying $30 to $45 a dozen for, and I said, look, and two, why are you spending so much money? You're griping about golf being such an expensive sport, and you're spending all this money, and half your balls are in the woods. So all you're doing is setting up for Pete to come by and find him and play your golf balls the next week. So
I'm filling my bag out.
Right, exactly. And I guess the point that I wanted to get out, guys, is this. We're not certainly, trying to knock the industry in any way or say that you shouldn't play this or you should play that, but I think you have to be realistic to your abilities. If you're a better quality player or a lower handicap player and you want to, as I say, treat yourself to a more premium brand of equipment, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're somebody that's a beginner or a high handicap, to go out and spend $2,000-$3,000 on a set of golf clubs and be playing, the top of the line golf ball week in, week out, and you're spending most of your time fishing them out of the pond or out of the woods, it just doesn't make any sense. That money could be better spent going to somebody like Pete or Clint and get some good quality lessons. Agree?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, What you don't see in the golf shops much anymore. You know, when I was coming up, and probably both of y'all too, the ball that was recommended was the old club special.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you know, grab it. But you don't see that ball on the counters anymore.
No.
You don't see any ball in that category on the counter anymore.
No,
I don't
you're right.
I don't know why, but
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's obviously effective marketing, and you know, I think we understand the reasonings there. But you know, I want the amateurs that are listening to the show tonight, particularly, to really take to heart what Clint and Pete just talked about. You know, it's great to say, hey, I've got this in my bag, or I'm playing these golf balls over here. But when you get out in the golf course, if you can't put 1 + 1 together to equal 2, it doesn't matter what you're playing with. You're going to look, and I hate to say this, but you're going to look just as foolish, regardless of what you're playing. So, number one, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but get some good quality lessons. Get out and work with your local professional, and work on fine tuning some of the fundamentals, and then worry about, as I said, treating yourself down the road, to some higher caliber equipment. But if that's what you choose to do, but regardless of what golf ball you play, if you can't make solid contact with it, it's not going to matter what you're doing. But guys, what about, and Clint, I'm going to go back to you here for a second. Favorite drills? Do you have any specific ones that you like to use? I know we can't show anything here on air, but is there any specific drills that you like to work with some of your amateurs? Well,
I work a lot primarily on with short game folks these days,
sure.
But there's quite a few drills that we've always. I just talked about the drill that I like the most is let's swing slow and see how far it goes. But I guess the drill that I use the most for people who are putting is a simple drill of stroke, hold, and look. We get so many people that they don't stay in position in their putting stroke. They come out of the putt too early.
Yep.
They get what we call a rebound stroke. It kind of rebounds back, kind of a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we try to do, obviously y'all know what I'm talking about, is we want the player to get established, make their stroke, hold the finish, and then look.
Right.
And that seems to help them get the sequence and the feel of staying, what we want to say, down or staying centered on their putting stroke, to where the club face has an opportunity to stay square and deliver a square blow to the ball to get a good end-over-end roll. One of the things we began to put with that now, and some people have done it for a long time, is to use the line on the ball to get an indication, like the old range ball or whatever. But they all see it on television now with the line and the ball rolling over and stuff. So we've kind of added that in for a bit of entertainment. But the main thing is for them to kind of stay centered. And I've found, in my practice anyway, that the stroke, hold, and look drill is very effective on them getting the feel of staying down and centered well past impact, and then look to see where the ball goes. That's the one I use the most.
Well said. Pete, what about yourself? Any specific drills that you really sort of grapple onto when you're working with your students?
I have two that I use quite a bit. One's called a wall drill. That I don't know if I termed that myself, but that's what I call it. And I use it from when the club's in the backswing, is if there was a wall behind them, if they had the club flat up against the wall when their hands are shoulder high, we go from that position to the same position in the forward swing. So it's basically from shoulder to shoulder. And, me being plain simple golf, I'm a big, swing plane guy. So it's getting the club in the right swing plane on those two parts. And I try to show them in its simplest form. If you just put the club on plane from shoulder to shoulder, the ball's going to go straight all the time. And so I use that a lot. And then I add to that what I call a stationary drill, where I take them to the same spot and I have them stop and then have them start from there. And I said, it's easy from a static position to find the backswing. Let's start from a static position in the backswing to find the downswing, so that you can know what's going to help you trigger to make the downswing. So I use those two quite a bit in doing a lot of the full swing stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with both of those answers. I think you're exactly right. Clint, I know that as you said, you're primarily working a lot with the short game right now. But really, once you sort of understand, even in the short game, you can transition that obviously into your full swing, because it's a lot of the same movements and things like that. It's just a little longer backswing and so forth. But I think what it goes kind of back to what was discussed earlier. I think one of the problems that a lot of golfers out there have is they're trying to take in too much information. We've talked about this many times on the show before. They're trying to absorb too much information. And this leads me to my next sort of question for both of you. And Clint, I'll start with you. Or actually, no, Pete, I know you just finished up, but I'll start with you on this one here. Depending on where you are in the nation, we're kind of coming to that mid-season, if you will. It's now coming into September here very quickly. For some, it's sort of mid-season. Even for others, it may be even getting closer towards the end of the season, again, depending on where you are. So depending on where you are, is this a good time for sort of a mid-season assessment of their game for them to really take a look and say, okay, this is what's been going on the first half, if you will, and these are things that I've been working on, and sort of an assessment that they maybe should be doing with you guys? Is this something that you're doing, or do you do it kind of all the way along? Pete?
Well, I usually have assessments as we go along, but there are times, especially right now, where I'll look at, we started off the season with goals, and so we'll take a look, right about at the end of August and say, okay, based on the goals we set at the beginning, where are we?
Right.
How have we done? And what are the things that have worked well for you? What are the things that haven't worked well? What drills did you like? What drills did you not like? And we sort of do, as you just said, another assessment from now, and then we look at it for the rest of the season, as we finish into September, into the fall, depending on, the guys that are going to stop playing at the end of the fall and the guys that are going to continue to play, whether they're here or go somewhere south for the winter. We just look at what we're going to do for the rest of the year based on where they've come from, where they are, and then have we achieved the goals? And, for the most part, knock on wood, we've achieved, I think probably the least one was about 90% of their goals. So we've done pretty good so far at getting them to where they wanted to go to, and getting the not only the ball contact, but getting it down. And, one of the other things in that goal sense too that I like to ask them is at this point in time, I like to say to them, I said, now, when you hit a shot, do you know why? And can you tell me how to fix it? Because by now they should know that. And that's the way I train them to do that. And for every one of them can. And that's a great point. And so then for me now, it's a checkpoint when I do get them out there going forward. They'll hit some shots, and I'll say, all right, tell me what's going on. What's the impact? Tell me about the face, the path, the angle. Tell me what's going on with the club ball contact. Why did you hit the shot that you hit? What's the cause, and how are we going to fix the next one? And boy, they can just spurt the answer right back to me. And if they can't, it's okay. I always tell them, it's never, I'm going to ask you a question. If you can't answer it, that's okay. That's not a problem. We'll get to the answer. And don't be afraid to answer one because, it's never, the answers are never dumb. You got to put them out there. I mean, just let me know what you're thinking so we can get you on the right track. But, I think it's a great thing to do, especially this time of year, just to reassess and see where they are and move forward.
And I think that one of the things, too, you made a great point about, not being afraid to give answers or ask questions. I'm always leery of the student who speaks very little. I mean, I certainly want them to pay attention and listen, but I want them to be engaging, with the conversation. It should be a conversation between the student and the teacher. It shouldn't be just one-sided. For two reasons. First off, if you're doing all the talking, and they're, certainly there's a point you want them to listen, but then you want them to respond to that. And if they're not, they're just sort of nodding, yeah, whatever. One of two things happening. Either you're losing them in the translation, they're falling asleep, or they're not understanding what you're saying. Because they should be able to be engaging. And Clint, I want to go to you on this one here. I want you to obviously add your thoughts to what Pete was just talking about, sort of mid-season, if you will. I know we're down south here, and our seasons can be a little bit longer, but than some of the golfers out there. But what do you try to do? Do you sort of assess like Pete does all the way along, and maybe do an overall assessment? And then I also want to throw in here, and Pete, I'm going to let you respond to this part as well. Clint, I want you to respond to that initial question, but then also, is it too late in the season for major changes, whether swing or otherwise? Are we too far into the season for major changes? Go ahead, Clint.
Well, you're right, Ted. Years ago when I was in Wisconsin, I saw golf as seasonal. I don't see it that way anymore because of where we're at. We play pretty much year round here. So, usually Pete's right. We want our players, particularly in the areas I'm working in, I want them to evaluate all the time. After every round, I want to, we try to get a person to understand we need to advance the ball well enough to score. So was your advancement game average today? Let's evaluate that. How many greens did you hit? How many fairways you hit? Was that your normal average? And if it was, then did your score go up or down? Well, obviously, if their score went up, we need to evaluate why, and that's did you pitch the ball well? You're putting off today. What was it? Therefore, we can go to that area, look at the videos that we've got of their successful strokes, and compare and see what they're not doing that they normally would do in a successful stroke. So you start evaluating, this is the part that's missing. Let's get back on track with what you do that creates good shots, and then maybe your score will come down. I never think that it's too late to do anything.
Right.
Okay? I mean, we see it, I'm working with a person hopefully for a fairly length of time, but we want a person to see golf as a long-time experiment to get better.
Right.
So why wait? If you're struggling a little bit or want to make some kind of a change in how you're going about playing, why wait till April? Let's do it now.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead and let's start building into it because we want to play golf year-round here, and further south we play year-round, so we don't see it as seasonal. So we would encourage a player that finds a hole in what they're doing. They want to make the commitment to make an improvement in how they're doing it. Let's go and get started now. And I do know that in the northern part of the country that's maybe not practical, but there are some indoor areas that they can use.
Yep.
Things that's becoming more popular. So I would think they would want to have, at that particular point, if I'm in the north teaching, I want to have the player evaluate, where were we at the beginning of the season? Where are you now? And do we have an opportunity to work on these problems from now until next March or April to where we don't have to recreate this problem again? Do we need to get in the gym, get a little more flexible? What do we need to work on? So I could see how that would be practical there, but here we see it more of a long-term, day-to-day, continuing process.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's a great point. That's an interesting point really for a lot of the the folks up in the north that maybe don't have the ability at this time or not have the flexibility because they're working, they're not retired yet or what have you, and they're not coming down here maybe other than a couple of weeks into the south. But always kind of amazed me, especially in this day and age. Now, 20 years ago, I can understand it because you didn't have the flexibility that you do now. But there are so many great indoor facilities in the Northeast, particularly right now, even right up into Canada. And for those Canadian folks listening into the show tonight, there's really no excuse. I mean, traditionally, in the Northeast, the season might be March, April. You might run into late October, early November, depending on when the snow starts flying, if it does. And then you sort of call it quits. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think both of you probably agree with this, to be working on your golf game throughout the season, get out there and playing, and then come the end of October, November, I'm going to put the clubs away now for the next 3 to 4 months and wait till next year because now you've missed an opportunity to continue growing in your game for those few months and be better prepared for when you do start back up and playing. You may not be able to play out in the golf course for 3, 4, 5 months, depending on where you are, but that doesn't mean you just come to a grinding halt. And a lot of guys do that, and then we end up with, as you said, the same issue next spring. Well, you got bowling league that starts in October. You got to get the bowling league. Yeah. Come on, give them a break. Well, and of course we got hockey up there, and I'm not. Listen, I understand. You can't be golfing 24/7, but at the same time, it just to me. I get folks up north that will call me and they'll say, Ted, gosh, I get out here this season and this, that, and the other's going on. And I'll say, well, what have you been doing all winter? Well, I was really not working on my golf game. And I said, well, then we're starting from basically ground zero again, and you can't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to go. Go ahead, Ted. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I just wanted to acknowledge. I thought you chimed in. You were going to say something. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many indoor facilities where you can do work. You were talking about not too late in the season. I'll give you a prime example. I was sent a video from a player over in Europe who's missed 8 cuts in a row, and had a major change that needed to be done to get this swing better. And I said, well, he wanted my advice. I said, well, we're going to make the change. I said, what do you mean? There's no reason to not do it. I mean, the track record is proof that what you're doing isn't working anyway. And so we made the change, and now we've got not only 2 straight cuts made on that, but bumped up to the European Tour and made a cut there also. So it's never too late, But in that regard, though, and I think Clint's along this line too, there are changes. You can make the right changes, and they can be done very quickly. And there's a key to that. And you have to know what changes to make. I mean, you're not going to do a complete overhaul, but there are some definite changes you can make that can get done quickly that can make a huge dynamic change in the impact right away.
Right. And again, we want people to get out there, and obviously first and foremost we want them to have fun. And if they're not, there's really 2 things that fall into place with that. Number one, they've got to be willing to make changes if necessary. But they've got to be willing to put in the time and the commitment to do that. And it's not just coming and taking the lessons. That's the first part of the puzzle. They've got to be out there and be willing to work on their own time when they're not there at the golf course with you or the practice tee or the putting green, Clint. With us there, they have to be willing to go and spend some of their own time out there. And there's things that you can do in the house. You don't even have to be out at the golf course. Things that you can do in your own home. The wall drill that you talked about, there's all kinds of things that you can be doing even away from the golf course. So there's really no excuse. One of the other questions I want to ask you guys, since we got a little bit of time here, and Clint, I'll start with you. What can a player learn from his or her failures on the golf course? And let's, if you want to use an example of specific students, I mean, certainly don't have to give names, but what can the player learn? They always want to talk about all the successes out there, but obviously, they're going to have more failures probably than successes, especially for the high handicap golfers. Mm-hmm. What do we want them to take away from their failures? And I know failures is a harsh word, but in reality, there are failures in golf as there are in life. What do we want them to take away from that?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting question. Actually, kind of tough question. I be honest with you, I kind of want them to forget their failure.
Okay.
I want them to remember what they were doing and understand what they did when they were successful. I don't want them focusing on the bad swing or the failed swing or the putt that this didn't go in, things like that. I want them to be able to analyze what they did when the shot was successful. There's a pattern there. All right. So, therefore, I want them to focus their attention on the successful pattern because I don't want them dwelling on what they did on their last shot. I want them to dwell on the fact that, okay, that was a good shot. Analyze and pay attention to, well, what was I thinking or was I thinking? What was, my body attitude when I hit a good shot? Because I want to replicate that as many times as I can.
Right.
So that's what I really, if they learn anything from their failures, maybe that's more a psychological or emotional issue. Maybe I was too nervous or I was putting too much emphasis on one shot at or worried about what I'm going to do for my next shot and worried about what I did on my last shot. Those kind of failures you can learn from. You have to stay focused on, as cliche as it is, focus on the shot you're hitting.
Right.
But as far as swing failures, I'm not so sure that I want them to learn anything from that other than the fact that they just need to forget it, pay attention to the good shots to understand how they react when they do hit a good shot.
Right.
And then try to replicate that.
Right, and I understand your point. I'm going to disagree slightly with you a little bit, Clint. So I'm going to nudge you under the bus. I'm not going to throw you under, but I'm going to nudge you under the bus.
That's fine.
The reason why I say this, and why, and maybe I didn't phrase it the way it should be, but I guess the reason why I think that there has to be an acknowledgement, and again, I agree 100% with you. I mean, we don't want the golfers out there, focusing and dwelling on their failures, but they cannot be so the other way that they're not at least acknowledging and recognizing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about the golf swing. It could be just their state of play, what have you. And Pete, I'm going to let you chime in here in just a second. But I think there has to be a certain amount of acknowledgement and understanding, whether it be from a mental side or an emotional side, as well as the physical side, of their failures. So they have to understand, first off, what they've done wrong, and then we have to put it in context, as you pointed out, Clint, and then have a repetitive nature, if you will, on what they should be doing right. And there has to be a transition, because I think if they completely ignore what they're doing wrong in the golf course, then they're not going to be realistic. Because everybody's going to have some bad shots. And yes, you need to put them out, you need to move on. But at the same time, there has to be some acknowledgement and some discussion, I think, of what they're doing. Pete, would you agree with that on some context?
Well, hang on a minute. Now, you disagree with me. I'm going to clarify what I said. Okay, hang on just a minute. Okay. Is that, I think you have to recognize, obviously you're going to very quickly recognize it was a bad shot. Right. And if you analyze that to point to compare against what you do when you hit a good shot, then I think recognizing that poor shot to compare, to understand the differences, I would agree.
Right.
But I don't want them dwelling on what they did.
No, I agree with that. Right. I feel like we're in the political campaign here. It's like if I mention Clint's name, he's going to have a rebuttal here.
There you go.
Pete,
I'm done now, Pete. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to move along here, guys. So, Pete, go ahead. Pete, your thoughts?
Well, what I always try to get them to do is, especially in circumstances, let's say, for example, one of my guys finishes and he said, man, I had 6 3-putts today. And I said, well, let me ask you, were you thinking of the consequence or were you trying to make the first one? And so, a lot of times when you talk to them, you'll have a guy standing over a putt. He says, man, if I miss this putt, I'm going to have to buy lunch today. I mean, they're always thinking about, what's going to happen if they miss it, instead of thinking about, let's just make it. So I try to turn the mental focus differently on those shots, acknowledging, you made some mistakes here, but let's turn the tables here the next time so you don't make those mistakes. I'll give you another classic example. I've got one player, every time he tries to shape a drive from right to left, he makes a double bogey. And I keep telling him, how many times do I have to tell you? You got to stop doing that. Well, but the hole calls for a draw. I said, yeah, but it doesn't call for a double. So, it goes back to where you just hit it to the corner and hit it on the green. I said, you don't have to shape that ball. Every time you try to do that, he's a left to right player. I said, every time you try to shape one right to left, you make a double or worse. And so, learning from that, I said, you have to just look at the scorecard. Par, birdie, par, double. Okay, there's a dog leg left. Okay, that was easy enough. You can figure that out. But I think I think Clint's got a point, too, where you don't want to dwell on it. And you both have good points. I'm being the moderator here in the middle, but I think you have to get to understanding. And I think a lot of it goes back to what you talk about with ball flights. You have to understand your misses, and you have to understand why you missed them. But then you also have to know how to fix them. And somebody asked me the other day about golf swings. Said, how can you watch all those bad swings and still hit it? I said, I'm always thinking of what the correction is. I don't see the bad.
Right.
I'm going the other direction. You see the bad swing. I see the fix. There's a difference. There's a big difference there. And it's just how you look at it.
Yeah, and just to take it a little bit forward from that, Pete, is one of the things that I try not to look at is really so much the swing itself. And what I mean by that is, and again, I've said this example many, many times, but if you look back 20, 30 years ago at some of the golfers out there, very uniquely different golf swings, everybody from Lee Trevino to Arnie to Jack, so on and so forth. And I tend to try to look at the results. I mean, it doesn't matter how they get there. Once they get to that impact position, if they're getting a good result, I don't care if they loop it around 3 times above their head and dance on one foot. I'm looking at the result. Seriously, if you think about it, and we talked about this at the very beginning of the segment, we're seeing everybody trying to, for a long time, have been sort of shuffled into this one box. Let's have, all of the different theories and things like this. And I think this has really confused a lot of golfers out there. Is they just, they're not everybody's the same. Everybody's different, which moves me into a category I think all three of us can relate to. And I'm nudging myself into that bus category, Clint, so don't feel bad.
Okay, I won't.
But obviously, as we get older, we all have to overcome physical limitations. And I'm not talking about, obviously, serious limitations. I mean, obviously, there's folks out there that have had some certainly more mishaps than any of us have had. But, we get a little bit older, we get a little bit stiffer, we're not as flexible. We don't get around as well, what have you. Clint, I'm going to start with you. What adjustments can we make? What should we be doing as we especially talk about some of the older golfers out there that come south for the winter months? You might be talking 70, 80 years old. There's only so much they can do. What can we do to help them?
Well, there's only, obviously, we all hope to be able to play well as long as we can. But there's some very simple things here. One, they need to stay as physically fit as possible. Just keep moving. Take dance classes. Do something to keep your body moving. Okay, that's first thing. Second thing, generally speaking, what I see in the older players is they lose in club head speed. So therefore, they're going to lose trajectory, particularly off the tee.
Right.
So we highly recommend that the older the player, go to a more highly lofted driver or a hybrid off the tee to get normal trajectory. They used to get normal trajectory out of a 10-degree. Maybe we need to go to a 14 or 15-degree club to get normal trajectory where the ball's not hitting the ground so fast. And the third thing that we actually highly encourage them to do is recognize where you're going to have the most fun from. Get your ego out of the way and go play those yellow tees. Okay?
Yep.
Because all about having a good time and playing the way you used to. It took me forever to get my father to move up to the front tees to where he could hit a 3-wood and an 8-iron to a par 4 again. You see? That's what we encourage them to do. Say, hey, you used to hit a driver and an 8-iron here from the back tees. Do you not want to still play that same game? Move up to where you can play that game. And they have so much more fun. They come back in. They've shot a good score. We have a dogfight every day at one of the clubs, and we got a group of guys that play that. And they come in. They shot their age, Yeah. Well, they shot their age from the ladies' tees. But who cares?
Right.
They're having fun. So that's what we recommend. Look for the higher lofted club to get more normal trajectory. Okay. Stay as fit as you can and start playing the game you used to play. If you have to move up, move up.
You're 100% right, and I agree. And it goes back to what I said earlier is we want the golfers out there that are listening to the show and pass us around throughout your foursome. We want you to have fun first and foremost, but we want you to be able to go out there with confidence and obviously to be able to play and hit some good shots. You're not going to play the same way you did when you were 20 years old. It's just not going to happen. I don't care what club you put in the bag or how many lessons and so forth. It's just not going to happen. Your physical limitations change as we get older. I mean, I can still hit a pretty good ball, but I know at 52, going on 53 here in the spring, I can't play as well as I once did. I can still play pretty decent, but not certainly to the level that I did when I was younger. And that's just a cold, hard fact. And I think once you come to the realization of that, then you're going to do that. Pete, I know you're probably going to agree with that as well, but what are maybe some other things that you try to do to help with some of your aging golfers that want to still get out there and have some fun, but maybe struggle a little bit? What do you try to do to help them?
Well, I think the first thing I try to get them to realize is I tell them the ball has no idea how old you are. It only knows the club's going to hit it. So let's make sure we concentrate on getting the club ball contact correct. As long as we can do that, you're going to hit straight, solid shots. It's going to be easier for you to hit those shots, and you're going to have more control over the ball. You're going to have more fun hitting straight, solid shots. So let's get the contact down first. I totally agree with Clint. I wish the companies would make 15, 16, 17, 18-degree drivers. They get the same head shape, but they've got 17 degrees aloft. It'd be so much easier for those players to hit those. They get a big mass that they can hit it on, but it's got a ton of loft on it. it'd be so much easier for those clubs to be able to hit. And I always tell them, too, I said, if a tour player came here and hit a driver in a 7-iron in this hole, what tees do you have to hit from so you can hit a driver in a 7?
Right.
Go up to those tees.
That's right.
That's what it is, And I also tell them, too, I said, some of the guys that, don't want to move forward, I said, well, go to the front tees, and I said, you can move back when you shoot par.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know how long that takes them.
Yeah, the other thing
they
I
have
always
more fun.
the other thing I always try to say to them, I say, if you can see the flag from those back tees, then you can play that. If you can't, so move up until you can see the flag.
Yeah. We don't play the. Hey, look, using that rule, we can't ever play the back tees again because we can't.
I can't see the next set of tees.
I can't see the ladies' tees from back there. Well, that's right.
But realistically, if you think about it, I mean, obviously, I'm just having a little fun here, but obviously, as we get older, our eyesight's not as good, and so if you're playing from the championship tees and you can't even see where you want your ball to go, it just doesn't make any sense. So, let's, like you said, move up, especially when you get on the par threes. I mean, if you're playing a par 3 that's 200-something yards long, and you're playing from the back tees, and you can't even see to the end of the tee box, you haven't got a hope in heck of landing it on the green.
No.
Right.
Unless you ricochet off a gator or something, maybe, I don't know,
yeah.
but that's it. But I just wanted to have a little bit of fun tonight, guys. And I asked some of these similar questions to another panel, but I just wanted to get some different perspectives, and you guys have done that very, very well as always. But
cool.
I guess let's have some maybe a quick closing thought from each of you. Clint, I'll let you go first if you don't mind. What do we want? What do we want to instill on the club golfer out there, or the amateur golfer, or somebody that maybe has drifted away from the game because out of frustration? What do we want to do to sort of hook them back in? Say, let's get out there and give it another shot. What can we tell them?
Well, I really like this new initiative they have through the PGA Play 9. Go out and try. The clubs are welcoming now. I mean, it's out there. There's an initiative to get more people in the game and get people to recover back into the game. It's hard to identify what will turn people back onto it because it's such an individual thing. But we're still here. I think they need to understand the player that has kind of left the game for a little while because maybe family commitments or whatever, we're still here. The golf course is still here. The staff's still here. We'll welcome you back with open arms. Come back and play some golf. There's all kind of opportunities to get in a clinic, to meet new people, ladies, men, the whole thing. It's a big push now to the get golf readies and the things of this nature. That there are ways to get back in the game and it not be such isolation. You can find people to play with. One of the most successful programs we've got is every day at one of our clubs. You don't have to have a game. Just get there by 11:30, and there's going to be somebody that wants to play. Just come on out. That's true. Yeah, so
well said.
That's the only thing to say. Hey, we're here for you. Whenever you get ready, just come on back, and no hard feelings or nothing. Just come back to our game, and we'll certainly and hopefully be able to get them all energized again to play some golf.
Well said, Clint. Great promo there for sure. Pete, what about you? What about you? Your thoughts on what we can do to get some of these people back?
Well, I think one of the things that I always try to, as an overall standpoint, is don't make the game so hard. A lot of the players are making it harder on themselves. And when you're not hitting it well, get some help. Don't search too long on your own because you're just going to compound what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of good professionals in every area, a lot of great teachers, and they can get you moving along in the right direction. For relative to what you're paying to play. So I'm always going to be on the teaching side because that's that's what I devoted myself to. So just not making the game so hard on yourself. There's a simple way to do it. That you can find some simplicity in there. Shoot, if you just type in simple golf, you'll find quite a few things you can find too. But I think in the end, I love what Clint said there. The golfers, we're here. So come on out. come on back out. I mean, get your kids out there. It's a fun thing to do. We've got a great place just down the road from us. It's a par 3. The longest hole is 141 yards. I mean, it's just an ideal place to go play. I take my daughter there all the time, and she's 24, but she loves to play there because it just fits what she can do. It's so much easier to play. It's a lot of fun. You grab a little Sunday bag, you grab 4 or 5 clubs, and you go out and have a blast. So those things are still there. So don't give up. Search around. There's a lot of great things that are growing in the game. So just give us another chance. We're here, just like Clint said.
Well said, guys. And I'm just going to add a quick closing thought, and then I'll let you guys go. I agree wholeheartedly with what both of you just said, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, if you will. I think the next evolution of golf is going to be family golf. And the reason why I say this is, obviously, as we all know, traditionally golf was a very male-dominated sport. Certainly in comparison, more men play than women. But there's been a big surgence, if you will, of lady golfers here in the last few years. Despite a tough recession that's gone through here, courses unfortunately some of them have closed up in that, but others have opened up. But I think what you're starting to see now is as more women become involved, they're wanting to sort of go to that next stage, and I think there's been a sort of a disconnect for a multitude of reasons of families, and I think part of it is social media has taken especially some of the young kids away and got them doing other things and not really focusing on family fun time. Golf is a great game for the family. I remember as a youngster, I loved playing with my dad. My mother played as well. We didn't necessarily play as a family because that was not something that was really done at that time. But my parents certainly played individually, and they played together from time to time. But in today's economy and today's demographics, if you will, this is a great opportunity for the golf industry to really grapple towards the family. Now, as more women are starting to come into the golf arena, the next, as I said, the next evolution is to get the family, to bring the family unit together. And what a great way for courses to really start to become aggressive in their marketing, especially some of the courses that might be struggling a little bit out there. Forget about just trying to get some of the old guys back in that maybe haven't played for 5 or 6 years, that maybe have given up or what have you. Let's go after the families and get them out there, get the kids involved, get the wives involved, the husbands involved. And, I think there's a whole area of golf that can be really channeled there instead of sort of going after the individual. Let's go after the family and get them out there and get the kids particularly out there involved at a young age. And there's lots of things, Clint, as you talked about, Get Ready Golf, all different great junior programs out there. And the moms love, getting their kids. What mom doesn't love doing things with their kids? And dad certainly wants to participate, and there's some family fun time that can be had if they just sort of work together to do that. And I think that's what the golf industry really needs to focus on. Vegas did that a number of years ago. Traditionally it was they went after the sort of the traditional gambler, and they turned it into more of a family experience. Now they're kind of going back the other way, but Vegas just boomed as a result. I think the golf industry can do the same thing, especially now that we've got more women getting out there and playing.
I think it's coming. We saw a turnaround in our junior camps this summer. First time in about 4 years we actually saw an increase of participation.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
I think you're right on the money. I think it's coming.
Yeah, and
there's no question.
And I'm going to talk more about that in another show, and there's a reason why I'm going down that route, because that's really what I'm starting to focus my efforts on is more for family and getting that family unit out there. I think, as I said, there's been a vast disconnect with the family units, as we've all seen and experienced, some personally and some other have seen it, in social media and things like that. And I think that this is something that really the golf industry could take a leadership role in and really get out there and capitalize. And I think, think of all the great resorts out there that would be more than happy to embrace a family coming out there and not only just do fun things at the resort, but get out there and play. Disney's a great one, and Myrtle Beach has some great opportunities out there as well, and all across the country. So I think that's where the next evolution of golf is going to be, is in family golf. So we'll see what happens. But guys, thank you as always. Clint, if anyone wants to reach out, how can they do that?
Real simple. ClintGolf001@yahoo.com.
Perfect.
All it takes.
Pete?
PlainSimpleGolf.com. That's PLANE, Plain Simple Golf. And find me.
Well, gentlemen, as always, thank you very much. Had a good time with you, as always. I appreciate all your thoughts and input, and most importantly, I appreciate you giving of your time, as I know we're all a little tired sometimes, especially Clint, as we get a little older, and Pete. We get a little tired. Our evenings are gold, and sometimes I know. Guys, thank you very much for coming on Coach's Corner, and I look forward to having you guys back here real soon.
Yeah, been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ted.
See you, Pete.
Always a pleasure. See ya.
All right, thanks, guys. Buchanan and Clint Wright, two very special guests on the Coach's Corner panel. I always have a good time with these two guys, and all of my panelists really enjoy their thoughts and input into the show, and I can't think of a greater follow-up than my next guest, a great young lady. She's been on the show a few times, actually, and let me just do a quick intro, and then I'll bring her out. My very special guest this evening, of course, is Meredith Kirk. She's an LPGA teaching professional, as well as the former Mrs. South Carolina in 2014. She's been considered to be one of the best young teachers under 40 in 2014 and 2015 by Golf Digest. Golf Magazine is also considered to be an Innovator of the Year in 2015, and also Golf.com considered to be one of the most beautiful women in golf, and I could certainly agree with that. She's definitely a beauty for sure. She's ranked third in Best Teacher in South Carolina by Golf Digest for 2015 and this year, 2016. And you can see some of her golf tips on the Golf Academy Live and the Golf Fix, of course, on the Golf Channel. So without any further ado, let me bring up my very special guest this evening, Meredith Kirk. Good evening, Meredith.
Ted, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, thank you. I've actually enjoyed listening to the show. I was listening to everything about growing the game, and you guys are on track with that.
Well, let me ask you, and we'll start with that. What I want to do with you, Meredith, and one thing I didn't mention in there, of course, I got to throw in there is an author. We're going to talk about your book here in just a little bit, but some other things I want to sort of wrap up as we go along here. But one of the things I want to ask you is, what's your thoughts about family golf?
Well, my thoughts are very similar to your thoughts on that. I think that we definitely need to grow the game, and the family needs to get involved. As you know, I have a large family. You know, I have 3 boys, 2 teenagers, and a 9-year-old, and getting them out there can be challenging at times because, you know, we're pulled in so many different directions, especially with, you know, with the internet and all this technology and everything. And this day and age that we're in is so different than when I was growing up and you were growing up. So I really think that to get the family out on the course, we have to make it really intriguing. It's, you know, no longer are the days of us going out there and having stroke play, right? When I was growing up, I'd go out and play with my dad, stroke play. But I think a great approach to growing the game is making it as fun as possible, not stressing out so much about all the rules, just going out there, making some swings, having fun, maybe playing best ball, have a little fun with, you know, a little captain's choice. That's what I do with my kids. And when we go out there, it really gives us a chance to have fun and talk and just really, you know, connect like we would at the dinner table, you know, just connect in that way. So I think that it's a great approach, bringing the family into it. And, you know, in Myrtle Beach, you see a lot of that because, you know, of course, we have so many golf courses here and so many families come here to vacation. That's the one good aspect about coming to Myrtle Beach to play golf. You know, you could come here and kids can actually play free. If you go to mbn.com or Myrtle Beach Golf Trips, you know, I partner with that company. We collaborate on a lot of work, and I love working with that company because juniors can play free. So there's so many initiatives out there. We have them in Myrtle Beach, and yes, just getting the family out on the course, having fun, and making it fun is really the route to go with that.
Yeah, and let me just add very quickly just a couple of quick points on a little bit about Meredith. As you mentioned, you're partnered up with Myrtle Beach Golf. You're also an ambassador for Myrtle Beach Golf. You're also a spokesperson for Founders Group International, which is a great organization as well. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But you're exactly right. And I think that one of the things that I've started to notice, and, you know, if we look back traditionally, as I was making my points earlier with the panel, if you look back traditionally, golf, again, it was a male-dominated sport for a long, long time. And I'm not even talking about the professional level. I'm just talking at the club level and so forth. And then more and more women started to become involved, and now you've really seen a boom. In fact, if you look statistically, I don't have them in front of me, but statistically, the main area of growth in golf has been in the women's market, not the men's market. In fact, there's been a decline in the men's market. And it's because more and more business professionals and young women that have sort of gravitated to golf for various reasons are taking an interest. It's becoming more accessible. And I think as the women become more accessible, of course, naturally they want their families to be involved. And I see a great opportunity here, and I know you've done some great work, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second, getting some of the more juniors. And I'm not just talking about the competitive juniors. There's lots of room and lots of great organizations out there sort of funneling juniors into junior golf. But we want to get young kids out there playing, and you've got a great program out there that you're doing with the Junior Golf Exchange. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the Junior Golf Exchange, that came about as my platform when I was Mrs. South Carolina, and I continued it for 2 years. I'm still working the program, not on such a high scale that I was. I mean, it was a national program. I've kind of downscaled only because of time restraints and everything, but still getting clubs out to kids. But the idea, the concept of that program is, being able to give kids a set of golf clubs at no cost. Because 4 or 5 years ago, when I was working with PGA Junior League Golf, really at its grassroots level, I had so many kids saying, hey, I want to play, I just don't have clubs. And then I had parents coming to me saying, I can't really afford to go out and invest like $200 or $300 in clubs if I don't know if my child's really going to gravitate toward the game. And I totally get that as a parent. I don't want to go out and invest $500 and just kind of cross my fingers. So the Junior Golf Exchange was just a program I developed for kids to have access to clubs. And if they didn't like the game, they could turn the clubs back into the exchange and another child could receive the club. So it's just a cool program that I ran here in Myrtle Beach, and I took it national all the way across the country. And a lot of people picked up on it, and the idea kind of morphed with different golf courses, with the private ones and then the public ones. And it was just, a wonderful venture. And I'm still doing it, like I said, on a smaller scale. But that's what it's going to take is initiatives like that, just allowing kids to get their hands on the clubs and try the game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's especially when you start getting into some of your areas, your inner city areas, and that where they just don't have the resources. What I would really love to see happen, and I'm trying to wrap my mind about. I mean, there's a lot of programs starting in that, but again, it's on a sort of a grassroots scale. I really want to see golf become more mainstream in the school system, and I'm not talking about the collegiate or even the high school level. I'm talking about elementary levels. We see sports like soccer and basketball and baseball and things, and football, of course, especially here in the South. At the school level, but you don't really see golf. And again, because it's a very costly sport, it's difficult to just really initiate. But there's a lot of great people out there that are starting to, get into the school system. I would love to see a national school program, just an introductory program to introduce some of these youngsters to the game. Because by the time they're about 14, 15, they're already moving on to something else. So we need to get them at that elementary level. And I would love to see, the PGA and LPGA maybe work together. And they may already be doing something that I'm not aware of. But to get into maybe even starting it at a grassroots and getting it into the school system so that we can get some of these younger people interested in the game. And I think that's going to be another way to grow it.
Yes. And in our area here, we have a few schools that have golf available. In one county next door to us in Georgetown County, I believe that First Tee is involved with the elementary schools there. And then it's kind of hit or miss in the county that I'm in. There's some schools that offer after-school programs on golf and whatnot, but there's that effort there. And golf professionals are really trying to work themselves and integrate into the public school system.
Yeah, and that's, there is a lot of, as I said, grassroots movement, some great ones out there. Kate Tempesta up in the New York area, I know, has run a very successful program. I know Nicole Weller does some great programs in the South Carolina area as well. But again, it's sort of, independent. I would love to see, what I'd really love to see is some of the major manufacturers come in with some serious money, work together with, as I said, the PGA, LPGA Tour, and, I hate to use this terminology, especially in the political climate, but lobby the government and get them, doing something like that. But, we'll see what happens. But I just want to touch very briefly because, I would be remiss if I didn't. as we talked about, of course, you were Mrs. South Carolina in 2014. Obviously, you've completed that cycle now. Mm-hmm. What were sort of your thoughts going into it? What do you take away from that experience, and how has it helped you to grow into who you are now?
Oh, wow. Those are very good questions.
I know it's a lot.
No, it's fine. Going into it, I just went to go have fun. I had no idea I was going to win. I think you and I have discussed this before.
Right.
I truly did not think I was going to win. Even when I was there the weekend, it was an entire weekend of competing. I mean, you have swimsuit, evening gown, interviews. Mm-hmm. It's very rigorous. And I was with these amazing women, and they were all so beautiful and sweet. Like, I connected with them, and it's so funny because I grew up kind of a tomboy. I kind of always avoided those really pretty, just totally put together women, and here I am among them trying to pull it off, right? And
right.
I ended up winning, and I totally connected to them. And so it really just expanded my group of friends because now I have so many friends that have competed in pageants, and I've really cherished those friendships and appreciate those women because they have taught me so much about life. And it's interesting sometimes the roads that God leads you down.
Right.
If you're open to learning, you can learn so much. And I did, and I had a great time. And I learned a lot about how far I could push myself, mentally, and
right.
challenge myself and just put myself out there without a fear of failure. That was a big accomplishment for me. And I've learned that winning's great, but failure is okay too in anything we do,
right.
that you can learn just as much from not winning. I didn't win Mrs. America, and I do not
right. even
see it as a failure. However, I learned a lot. And so, where I'm at now, coming out of that, I would say I'm a much stronger person, and my skin is much thicker. I can take the heat. I let things literally roll off my back. So it's really helped me focus on, what are my priorities? And
right.
I just, stay focused on what my priorities are, and I try not to get distracted. It's very easy to get distracted when you're in the midst of all of that excitement and all these accolades and all of that. But really, I just stay focused on what my goals are with myself and my family, and, I just give the rest to God and enjoy the ride because, you know what, at the end of the day, life is short. Even if we have the opportunity to live a very long, full life, in our 90s, right? It's
right.
still short. So where I'm at now is I want to utilize every gift and talent that I have for the rest of my life, and I try to teach that to my kids. So I'm just, plugging along, teaching golf, and I enjoy being a spokesperson for Founders Group International and their affiliate marketing programs, nbn.com and Myrtle Beach Golf Trips. Great company, and absolutely
right.
love the golf industry, and I'm enjoying that and just seeing where God takes me.
Well said. One final question about the Mrs. South Carolina. When you, I guess, were exposed to some of the other contestants, and they obviously understand that you were, because you were a golf professional before you actually got into the contest, did they come away with a different appreciation for golf? I mean, some of them may play, but I'm sure a lot of them maybe didn't. Were you able to sort of plant the seed while you were there, sort of mingling about golf, or did you get any sort of inquiries about what you did?
Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely. And, the pageant was amazing because so many of the women, I mean, they all came from different careers. I mean, there was doctors,
right.
there was lawyers, all sorts of different women there. And so one of the cool aspects about the pageant is when you go, you actually bring gifts for all the contestants, and it's the same gifts. So when I went, I had 52 gifts to give all these amazing women, and of course my whole theme was golf, right? Because I represented the golf capital of the world, Myrtle Beach, and so I had golf balls and golf towels, and I put together this cool little pack for the women so they would get involved in golf, kind of like a starter kit. Well, they were thrilled about it. I was thinking, oh, they're not going to like this, But no, they absolutely were like, this is so cool. Now I'm going to go play golf because, you've given me everything to start, minus the clubs, to get started. And then, of course, their husbands, I had more husbands at the pageant pull me aside saying, hey, I've got this hook, and this is what I'm doing. And, it's so funny. I think I gave I had 10 different husbands I was working with while I was at the pageant.
Right.
It was so much fun.
Well, and that's what I mean. And as you talked about from a spiritual aspect, I mean, God gives us all gifts, and it's up to us to really, of course, with His help, to figure out what those gifts are, and then once we do, to be able to put them to good use. And obviously, you've been given many, many talents, and obviously golf being one of them, and you're utilizing those and sharing that talent and that gift, if you will, with those that you come in contact. And that's one of the things that I've really admired about you. I mean, you do so many wonderful things, and there's a lot of great people in this profession, but you are really, truly very passionate about what you do. And I think you have to be passionate regardless of what your talents or gifts are. Otherwise, you're not having fun, you're not enjoying life. And there's, that's a whole different discussion for a different type of program. But you know what I'm talking about. So, as you're now coming into sort of a different phase of your teaching career, and golf life, if you will. As you said, you've partnered with Myrtle Beach Golf Trips. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but we're going to talk about your book because there's a little bit of a relationship there as well. Tell us, first off, a little bit about your book. What's it called? I know the title, but I want you to go through it. And then let's talk a little bit about the book and then your partnership with Myrtle Beach Golf Trips. Sure.
Well, the name of the book is called Skill Drills. It's 91 golf drills to improve your skill level and thrill of the game. And so the concept of the book is it's just a book of golf drills. It's some of my favorite golf drills that I've been teaching for over a decade now. And what I've done is I've kind of compiled them into a book so that my students and, people that watch my golf videos on NBN.com and other affiliates sites for Myrtle Beach Golf information that I put out there. It's just, a way for people to, have everything in one place because I do so many different golf tip videos. And, I've done it from the Golf Channel and also with NBN.com. If you go to their video center right now, you'll probably find like 45 or 50 videos that I've done. And so I have so many people say, hey, what was that drill that you did when you stuck the basketball between your legs? What was that drill, Maybe I should not have used that one as an analogy, but anywho.
That's okay. I know what you meant.
So actually that one is in Skill Drills, so just you can look it up. It's the basketball drill. But, so I just compiled everything, and it's great for me as an instructor because after a lesson, I always like to leave my student with drills. It's one thing saying, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. It's another thing saying, hey, this is what, we need to work on, and this is how you can accomplish, getting from point A to point B. And so it's kind of like a manual. I can say, hey, go to page 38 and go to this page. I want you to work on these two drills, and then we'll move forward and progress from there. And so it's really just a manual. It's going to come in handy for me. But I collaborated with Myrtle Beach Golf Trips with this idea. They're an amazing golf packaging company, and they're the coolest people ever to work with. And so I just had this idea, and I shared the idea with them about the book. And I said, hey, I really want to make this available to everybody that's coming to Myrtle Beach and playing golf. And they're like, you know what? We totally support you. They're like the most, like I said, amazing people. I've worked with them 6 years. So what we've done is we've collaborated together, and here probably within the next month, Skill Drills is going to be available as a free ebook, a download.
Oh, wow.
And so you can go to myrtlebeachgolftrips.com. They also have a sister affiliate site, mbn.com, and I'm sure there'll be information on both of those sites on how to download the book. And also, another fun collaboration is we're going to video all 91 of these drills.
Oh, wow.
So there's going to be a lot of different types of content. We're all on the go. We all have our mobile devices. Some people prefer to watch videos. Some people actually are more visual. They want to see step-by-step it written out. And then also in the book, there's pictures to match all the steps. And so
Okay.
whatever, type of content you like, we're kind of knocking them all out with skill drills so that it can be available to everybody.
Yeah, and I like in part of the title what really sort of appealed to me was sort of the last part of it, thrill of the game. And that's something too is, we want people to have fun in this game. And I think there's been a period of time and if we're honest with ourselves, I think it's become very realistic. There's people, as I mentioned in the earlier segment with the guys, there's people that have sort of drifted away from golf because they found it very difficult, very challenging. And we obviously, are doing our best to try and help them out. What have you found over your journey in golf that has helped you to be able to help some of these people that maybe have kind of given up on their games a little bit? What are some of the things that you do to encourage them?
Well, I encourage them to keep it fun. I think that, studies have shown, I don't know, I think you have actually had Debbie Cruz, LPGA. She is at Arizona State University. Have you had her on your show?
I think so, yes. I've had quite a few, so I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe so, yes.
Okay, Debbie Cruz is awesome. And so when I was doing some continuing education work with the LPGA, she was talking about the brain aspect of golf. When you're playing golf, that you perform your best when you're having fun. And it's like that pretty much in every other sport, right? But there is definitely a link to our brains of having fun and enjoying the game. So what I do to encourage people to, to come back into the game is make it fun. They need to have that fun experience. So I think keeping it simple, not using all 14 clubs. I'm a big advocate of, pick 7 or 8 that you like. Or sometimes I have students, I'm like, listen, just take 6 clubs, your 6 favorite clubs out there. And I want you to go, I want you to have fun, and don't keep score. I want you to go play 9 holes in the afternoon after work at least 3 times. Don't keep score. Only take the clubs you like and just reconnect. Just have fun. And I think sometimes, and even, as a golf instructor, it's so easy to get very analytical, very technical, and it has to be this way because, we have all this knowledge and information, and we have this technology that we have as tools, and, you put it all together, and it's just sometimes it's just too much, and you got to go back to keeping it simple. And so that's what I encourage. If I actually have a junior golfer who's wanting to quit and they're very talented and they once were very passionate about the game, that's when I say, hey, I want you to go play and don't keep score. Just go have fun. Go, if you want to throw down another ball and there's no one behind you and it's late in the afternoon, throw down another ball, hit another shot. Just, reconnect. And I think that's, and it's kind of like that in every aspect of life, isn't it? It's like that same concept with relationships with people, when you're not having fun anymore, you got to go back to the first love, right? You got to go back to the first part of golf that you loved. And it's the concept that I think works with golf in really every area of life.
Yeah, well said. And you're exactly right. One of the things that I've noticed here for quite some time in golf, and I think that we've got to kind of get away from that. 2 things, really. I'm going to talk about technology a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts on it. But especially with some of the younger golfers that show a certain skill level, I think there's been a big push for some of these youngsters to really get in there and grind it out, and that so much to a point that they're not having fun anymore. There's too much pressure on them, and I think you have to allow their talents to sort of come out because not everybody's going to make it on the PGA or LPGA tour. It's just a cold hard fact. And I think one of the dangers that we have to be careful of with our youngsters out there is that letting them understand that they're not there to just try and make it out on the tour. They're there to have fun. It's a great game. It can be used for fun. It can be used as a business tool for some people out there. It can be used, as I said, for a family connection platform, if you will. And, of course, for those that maybe want to play at a higher caliber, it can be a great career, whether it be a teaching or playing career. So there's a lot of different platforms that can be had. One of the dangers that I've seen was with parents, and I'm sure you've seen it, Meredith, in your teachings, where parents are just a little bit too pushy with their kids. How do we combat that a little bit? How do we sort of rein the parents in and let the kids just go out there and have a good time and let their natural abilities take root?
That's a great question because I have seen that a lot where the parents, are more passionate about the child playing than the
Right.
child is passionate. And usually when I'm instructing, a child, especially if they're under the age of probably 13 or 14, and
Mm-hmm.
I see that they do not have any desire to play.
Right.
Usually what I do is I just say, listen, we need to make this fun and have fun with them again, because it's just too much pressure. And I actually had a lot of pressure growing up playing golf myself. So I've actually been in the shoes of a junior golfer not wanting to play, playing well, but not wanting to play, not enjoying it because there's just so much pressure. It's practice every day. It's nonstop.
Right.
It can be so rigorous,
Right, exactly.
But, and I think that's when you have to choose a good coach. I think that if a parent is very driven, that the best thing that they can do for their child is find a coach that's going to help balance the two out.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually what I do is if I feel the parent is, really, really passionate and the child has lost their passion, what my goal as the instructor, it's one, obviously I'm going to help them improve their golf swing, but two, it's really having fun. And that's bringing fun back into the equation, creating games during practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do. You got to have incentives. We're kind of wired for that. We need to have an incentive. I mean, when you're out in the course, if you're by yourself playing, and I know this is for me, if I'm by myself,
Right.
I can focus, but sometimes I'll lose my focus. So
Right.
sometimes I'll play two balls, and just playing two balls, I'll have to play a game within myself to keep myself focused. And children are the same way; they need that too. But the best thing that parents can do is, really allow their child to guide in the sport, because the last thing you want to do is drive a child to not desire to play the game. And I have seen that. I have seen children who are amazing, phenomenal golfers, and they quit. And it's usually between the ages, it happens about the age of 15, 16, or 17. That's the most common age you're going to see it. And they literally fall out from it because they're that burned out. So, it's like, golf is like a marathon. When you're training and your goal, let's say your goal hypothetically as a youth is to get a scholarship, pace yourself, pace your tournaments in the summer, pace how much you compete. And also you have to make time to do fun things outside of golf when you're pacing yourself. Everybody has to have a break, and it's really good, actually very healthy for your brain to switch things up and do an activity that might be opposite of golf, just for balance and everything. So those are things that I would suggest.
Right, and it kind of reminds me of, and I don't know whether you followed soccer much as a youngster or not, but, it kind of reminds me of the soccer dads that used to be along the sidelines, and they'd be kind of yelling out at their kid, play the ball, do this, don't do that, and, kind of interfering with the coach, and they'd be running up and down the field more than the kid was, just in order to, you know what I mean? They were just constantly, and, the kid's just, shrinking out in the field because it's, his or her dad that's yelling from the sideline. And they're just too involved, and I think you have to find a balance. And you're exactly right. There's some great academies out there that can help nurture along some of these students, but I think that we have to be careful that that we don't get so overboard that these kids just get overwhelmed. Because, and you're right, when they hit about the 15, 16, 17 age, their interests are starting to drift. And as a parent, I think you have to be willing to back off a certain amount and say, maybe the kid wants to do something else for a little while. That doesn't mean they won't come back to golf if that's a passion. But if you're driving the passion, not the child, then you're going to run into those hurdles. I quickly mentioned technology. I just want to get your thoughts on this as well, since we never talked about this before. Obviously, I know that you use some technology. I don't know what you use particularly, but your thoughts on technology. Is there a danger? Have you noticed a danger, if you will, of exposing students too much to the technology and not enough to sort of the fundamentals, if you will, and how do you find a balance? When is it okay to use the technology, and how do you use it if you use it at all, and keep that balance so that you're not sort of overwhelming the students? Because that's been a problem for the industry as well, I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, and I was actually just thinking about this the other day when I was pondering technology on my own, because, again, I see so many social media posts. TrackMan, flight scope this and the numbers. It's always about the numbers. And, you got to be careful with those tools. And that's all they are. They're just tools to help assist and kind of just pinpoint different areas that need improvement. And, my theory on that is, if I have a student that, let's say, has a handicap over 10 or 15, what I usually will do is I will take, I'll take a video and I'll do a slow motion and I'll analyze the video. I don't mind doing that once or twice here and there. I don't like to do it every time. I only use it as a tool for them to actually see it in slow motion. And then after that, you can make corrections. But again, there's so many things fundamentally with golf that you can see with your own eye. The tools like, let's say, Flight Scope and TrackMan, that's great if you're wanting to look at, what is taking place at impact. What is the face doing, the path, and, all that great information. However, if you have someone who has a 25 handicap, it's going to be irrelevant what your numbers are because you're actually going to be able to see what is going on just with your own eye in the ball flight. So, again, it's, the better the player, as I have students that are professional, and I have to use those tools. Because it's so finite. The changes we make are so finite. But again, if it's somebody that has a higher handicap, we don't have to use those tools. And I love the fact that I don't have to use those tools because it keeps it fun. Because once you start using the tools, they might think it's exciting seeing the numbers, but actually it creates more stress.
Right. Well,
so it's a double-edged sword, really, and you do have to be careful. And also, personality type is really important. Really getting to know your student's personality type. You're going to have very analytical students, and then you're going to have some students that are like, oh, I don't even care to get my video. Just tell me how to fix it. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
It's the ones who get really technical that you have to kind of harness and say, okay, I'm going to show you this one area, but that's all we're doing. It's almost like you have to keep it from them so they don't get hyper-focused on an area that they don't need to get hyper-focused on.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Just to very quickly, and then we'll wrap up that discussion. But one of the things, as you have pointed out, you see on some of the discussion boards, whether it be on Facebook or other social media, and there's some on there that swear by this or they've got to do this, and I always go back to sort of the basics, and I look at it from this standpoint. What are you going to do if the power goes out or the battery dies? What are you going to rely on then? And I'm talking about some of the teachers out there that rely heavily on the technology and equipment out there in their teaching. Now, again, as you pointed out, I think it's a great tool to have, and I think a lot of these devices and programs that are out there are fantastic. But I think we have to be careful as teach professionals that we don't get too wrapped up in the numbers game, if you will, because again, if you can't assess your students without that technology, then you're in a world of trouble when that power or battery dies. Should it happen in the middle? I mean, what are you going to do if the power goes out in the middle of a lesson? Well, I'm sorry, we got to pack it up because I can't, without my flight scope or without this, I can't do anything. So, to those instructors out there that might be listening, we have to be careful of that, and that's something that I've been very fortunate. I try to find that balance as you do. There's an appropriate time for certain information, and again, if you have some sort of high tech people that like to see a little bit of the numbers, I'll show them a little bit of that as well. But you're exactly right. I think it's a balancing act. I want to talk again, go back about the book and give you an opportunity to talk again about Myrtle Beach Golf Trips. I know you've said here that you've partnered with them. Let's talk a little bit about them and again about the offer coming up with them for the book.
Right. So the offer coming up, it will probably take place by the end of summer. I would say, mid next month, but they're going to have skill drills, 91 golf drills to improve your skill level and thrill of the game, available as a free ebook download. And it's at myrtlebeachgolftrips.com. They also have a sister affiliate site, mbn.com. That will have information on there, I'm sure, as well on how to do that. Of course, I will be posting on my social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook on how to be able to access the free ebook to download it. But yes, it's a great collaboration with them. And, the goal of it is all these golfers coming to Myrtle Beach using MBN.com and Myrtle Beach golf trips to plan their next golf vacation. I'm really helping them out here. I'm hoping that their scores are going to be a little bit lower. They'll keep coming back to these amazing courses.
There's just it's mind-blowing really when you look at it. I mean, the last count, and this was going back a number of years ago, I think it was like 150 or something golf courses. I'm sure there's more now, but and that's just the Myrtle Beach area. So, I mean, it's just a continually growing sport, and Myrtle Beach has like you said, is the golf capital of the world, and it's a great place. I love it there. And I actually, as I reached out to you earlier, I've used others before, but I really wanted to get a premium organization that's in that area because I'm looking at bringing groups and things into Myrtle Beach to play, and I really want somebody to sort of partner with myself, if you will, with the show and that to bring some people to Myrtle Beach. So thank you for sending that information to me, and I have reached out to them. I'm just waiting to connect. But now you talk about, and something kind of got me curious about this. You stopped at 91. Was that just happened to be how many you did, or I mean, like not a nice round number like 100 or 75 or 91? Was just, it kind of struck me as funny.
I knew you were going to ask me that, Ted. I knew you were going to ask me that. I said, he's going to ask me about 91. I know it because I know you. No, it's a great question. My goal is 100, obviously, to keep something nice and even, to keep it nice and clean, right? But no, what does Meredith do? She has to choose 91. No, what happened was I actually created 100, and some of the drills were a little bit too similar. So I wanted to kind of separate the ones that were too similar. So I knocked out 9, and the number came to 91, which ironically for me is one of my favorite numbers because Psalm 91 is my favorite psalm. And I realized that. I was actually talking to my mom. I said, well, it looks like it's going to be 91. And then I said it, and I said, oh, my goodness, that's my favorite psalm. So I actually have 2. Psalm 23 is, I wrote that book, Thy Club and Thy Staff, and then also now I have 91 golf drills. No, it's not Bible related. This is strictly golf, but it is my favorite Psalm, 91. So I was actually, you know what? That must be a God thing. So I'll just keep it at 91.
Well, that's perfect. What a great answer. And I know now. Are there any other future books that you're wanting to work on that obviously is golf related? Is there anything else that maybe you can kind of leak out a little bit tonight, or no?
Well, you know what? As of right now, I have ideas. I've always had something cooking, but right now I'm really going to focus this next year on skill drills, and we're getting ready to shoot all these videos so everyone can have access to all the drills online as well, and it's going to be a really fun year doing this, and it's a great project, and I'm hoping that it helps a lot of players, and I've already had a lot of people reach out to me, college coaches and high school coaches saying, oh, I need these drills for the team, and so I'm excited for everybody to have access to it because there's a lot of fun drills in there, and a lot of them I made up myself over the years, and then a lot of them were inspired by people who've inspired me, LPGA teachers and other, PGA professionals and tour players. And so it's just kind of a modge-podge of different drills that hopefully will assist all players on all different skill levels.
Fantastic. That actually brings me to an interesting point. Who were some of your inspirations in golf? Who sort of, lit the fire in Meredith Kirk to gravitate to golf? Who were some of your heroes, I guess?
Wow. Probably Nancy Lopez. I would say definitely Nancy Lopez was an inspiration to me. I remember my first club. I believe my first club was a Mickey Wright.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, iron, and I'm talking the blades, the old school blades.
Well, yeah.
But, yeah, I would actually say Nancy Lopez. It was really cool because she was at Monday After the Masters 2 or 3 years ago, and I had a chance to interview her. and my knees were shaking. You know,
Wow.
it's like, let me interview. I can interview Darius Rucker and all these other people, and I don't get nervous. But here's Nancy Lopez, because when I was a little girl, I looked up to her, and I admire her so much. She's done so much for the game of golf, and she's truly a very kind and humble woman and a great example to the game.
Yeah, I'm actually working on getting her on the show. As I don't know if you're aware or not, I actually do two shows. I do Golf Talk Live Thursday nights, and then Tuesday mornings I do another program called The Women of Golf, where we've interviewed a lot of not only Symetra Tour players, but LPGA veterans of the game. We've had everybody from Rosie Jones. We have actually our very first guest, and when I say our rather, is my co-host on that is LPGA professional Cindy Miller. And we host that together.
Wonderful.
Oh yeah, Cindy. Yeah, Cindy's just a fantastic person. But our very first guest on the show was Kathy Whitworth, who of course is a legend of the game, and to this day she still holds the record of most tournaments won, professional tournaments won, male or female. So that's kind of interesting. But we're working on getting Nancy Lopez. But we've had some great ladies of golf, and then again some of the newer ones coming out on the Symetra Tour. We've been featuring every week as well. So a lot of great up and comers in that. Yeah, and it really, one of the reasons why I wanted to do a separate show for that, and I actually, it was kind of funny how Cindy got involved. Very quick story was I actually reached out to Cindy to have her as a guest, and when she kind of heard the concept of what I wanted to do is have a show dedicated specifically for women. That doesn't mean that men don't listen, but it was really sort of geared towards women's golf. She just said, well, can I be part of that? So her and I have been co-hosting that for, I think we're going on our third year now for that particular show. And that's Tuesday mornings on the same network, blogtalkradio.com. But
okay,
yeah,
well,
I'm
definitely going to listen to you guys.
Yeah, she's, and that's Tuesdays from 9 to 10 Eastern time. So that's just before you, well, no, you're probably out on the golf course early, but you'll have to save it and listen to it in the archive version, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We enjoy some of the great ladies of golf, all kinds of teaching professionals, and I'll get you on that show as well, Meredith, some Tuesday morning when you can squeeze us in for some time. But
sure.
A lot of great professionals out there, and I think that one of the things that I really am excited to see is just the sort of surgence, as I mentioned earlier, with women in golf. We've interviewed some women that are business professionals. They're not golf professionals. They're business professionals that understand the value. Do you work with a lot of your students that obviously you're dealing with all different levels, male and female, young and older. But do you approach it also from the business standpoint, what a great business tool golf can be for some of the up-and-coming professionals and business professionals out there as well that can use golf as a business tool?
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of female students that are business professionals and improving their game, and they take a lot of trips together, again, mixing business with golf.
Right.
Taking the approach that men have been doing for decades, and the ladies are catching on to it, and they're saying, hey, this is fun. And, yeah, so I think it is growing among lady professionals. And also I think that, the millennials have been touched on quite a bit. And I think that Top Golf, different places that offer golf and in a different format is a way for, females to get interested too, because, with Top Golf, they have it kind of the restaurant style. You're hanging out, you're relaxed, and women who may feel intimidated by swinging the golf club are like, hey, I'll try it, and they realize, wow, this is actually easier than I thought. I can get the ball off the ground. Wow, I can do this. And so I think with women, sometimes it just takes that initial, that confidence of them making contact with the ball and realizing that they can do it, that it's not as hard as it seems. Yes, it's challenging, but it's not as hard as it seems.
Yeah, and that's true. And it really, I think also, in all fairness to a lot of the women out there that maybe are just starting out and are a little bit intimidated, I think that this ebook that you've got coming out here in the next little bit is a great way, a great start, because it gives them some drills that they can work on. And I think obviously, you want them to come out if they're in your area, to be able to come out and work with you and get some of the basic setups in that as well, and then progress from there. But what a great opportunity really to learn. And it's a learning experience for you as well, because as you go along and and work with the various students that you're working with and get exposed more and more. It gives you some great ideas to come up with and keep helping to grow the game, and you're doing a fantastic job, Meredith.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So let's go back to family just a little bit very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you've got 3 boys, and of course, do they all play golf?
Actually, yes, they all play golf. I'd say my youngest, Solomon, my middle son, he's getting interested again. My oldest son is a U.S. Olympic weightlifter, and he's really, he just actually got ranked 8th in the nation this year for the 15-year-old age division, so I'm really proud of him. He has no interest in playing golf. However, he does know how to play. He knows the etiquette. Of course, I had him involved in junior golf growing up, and so my middle son, Solomon, he'll be 14 next month, and he's got quite a natural swing, and if he wants to pursue golf, I think he could go very far. But again, remember we were talking about pressure earlier, and I take a very balanced approach with my children when it comes to sports. I allow themselves to lead in that area. I'm not real pushy because, again, we all have certain gifts and talents, and you can't put what is that saying? You can't put a square peg in a round hole. And so even though I am a golf professional and I play golf myself, I don't expect them to do that if that's not what they choose. However, Solomon has a natural ability, and I have a lot of fun playing with him. And then our youngest son, Jordan, he's 9, and he actually he can swing right and left-handed. I've been teaching him both ways. He's like ambidextrous. And so that's been a lot of fun doing that, and he really is an amazing golfer. But it's again where I'm at that age with both of those 2 sons that play that I'm letting them kind of guide and lead, and we'll see. But in the meantime, they play a lot of basketball, so they have 2 roads they could probably go on.
Well, and that's exactly key, and that's paramount. I think, exposing kids to all different types of sports and then letting them sort of choose and gravitate. And obviously that they know that you're big in golf, so they understand that option is there if they so choose. But again, I like the fact that you're not really pushing them. And who knows, your oldest son, when he kind of, goes through his process with what he's doing right now, maybe later in life he can say, you know what, I'm done with the weightlifting now. I'm done with other things that I'm doing. There's still always time to hook up with golf later on in life if he so chooses. So, but I like your approach with that, Meredith, that you're not, sort of ramming it down just because mom's, into golf big time doesn't mean that my kids have to be out in the golf course 24/7 with me. So I like that approach.
Exactly.
And that's fantastic. Very quickly, just if you wouldn't mind, Meredith, before we wrap, it's hard to believe, gosh, this hour's just blown past.
I know, we always have so much fun. I mean, I could talk to you for hours.
I know it. I was going to start off the segment by saying something, and this is God's honest truth. Normally when I have a guest coming on, of course, I put some talking points together. They'll either give me some notes or whatnot, and I usually have a whole series of notes. You're one of the only guests I ever had that I didn't have to do anything for because there's just so much to talk about that we can do on the show that I didn't have. I'm kid you not. My page is blank as far as talking points with Meredith Kirk because there's just so many things that you're involved in, do and have done that I knew that there'd be no problem in having the conversation flow. So thank you for that, making my job easy here tonight.
I'm glad I can assist.
Because usually I'm typing away here and getting all my notes together, and I just thought, no, I know what I'm going to ask Meredith, and I know that the conversation will flow quite well. So thank you for that again. But very quickly, again, just remind them of the book. And one other thing I was going to ask, is it also are you leaning towards at some point? Is it going to be available in a hardcover version or no?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not going out to get it published right away in hardback or anything. I'm really, the focus is all digital. And so, I mean, I might, for my students, if they need a hardback copy, have that available for students and whatnot. I'm not out to sell this as a book. I just, I want to be able to bring it through MyrtleBeachGolfTrips.com and NBN.com through to all different types of mobile devices through the ebook. So I'm really staying focused on digital because, again, in this day and age, sometimes it's hard to sit down and just read a book, and everything is so digital that I want to make it available to everyone. So, when it comes out, it will be, a download that actually has, steps, step-by-step guide for each drill. You'll have the pictures that you can view. And then we're getting ready to shoot all 91 of these tips throughout this next year, so you can access the book through video as well. And again, all that information will be up on MyrtleBeachGolfTrips.com and its affiliate sister site, MBN.com, here probably by the end of summer. So the end of summer was our goal on releasing the book. And so I would just keep checking back to those sites. And then also I will be, blasting it on my social media, so Instagram, on Twitter, Meredith Kirk on Facebook. It's Meredith Kirk on Instagram, and Mayor Kirk, M-E-R-E, Kirk, at Twitter. And I'll be putting that information out there for everyone. But it's going to be, I'm really excited. Because it's just really simple drills. A lot of the drills are a lot of fun. And, again, we got to keep it fun, and it goes back to the thrill of the game, the subtitle. So we got to keep that thrill. We got to have fun out there playing golf, because that's how we're going to grow the game. And also that's how we're going to improve our own golf swings. Right, exactly. Well said. Meredith, I want to thank you for coming on Golf Talk Live again. It's as always, it's been a pleasure, and you have an open invitation. You're welcome to come back any time that you feel like talking some golf. This is a great game that we're involved with, and you certainly are a great ambassador of the game, and you're doing so much to help grow it. And I'm looking forward to developing a partnership of my own with Myrtle Beach Golf Trips. I think it's a great organization from what I've observed of it so far, and I'm certainly looking forward to connecting with them as well. Oh, that's wonderful. And, they have some of the best courses. I mean, I know. When you talk to them, I mean, you've got Grand Dunes, Litchfield, you have Kings North, Myrtle Beach National, the West Course, the South Course. You have Polly's Plantation, Pine Lakes, Myrtlewood, River Club, and River Hills. I mean, can you tell an ambassador for Myrtle Beach Golf? They have, and then you also have TPC, and I teach at the Dustin Johnson Golf School, which is, at TPC. So they have just amazing courses, and it's an amazing group of people, and truly you're going to get your best rates coming to Myrtle Beach through them. And also now, hopefully, everybody will be able to improve their game with skill drills. At least I'm hoping so. Right. I have no doubt, Meredith. In fact, when it's available, I'm going to download it, because I want to even though I teach as well, I want to work on some things for myself. So it's always nice I always like to collaborate. But I also like to learn from other teachers as well out there, because you're never too old to learn something new, and there's always somebody might do something a little bit differently. So I'm going to be watching for that when it comes available on those sites. Meredith, again, thank you very much for giving of your time. I know it's not always easy. There's family obligations, and we all have a busy work day, so I appreciate you giving of your time. And again, I mean this sincerely. You're welcome to come back anytime. Thank you so much for having me on, and if there's anything I can do, you let me know, because I'm here to help grow the game. I appreciate it. Thank you, Meredith, and have a great evening, and God bless. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye. All right. That was my very special guest, LPGA professional Meredith Kirk. What a great young lady. Certainly, as I said, a great ambassador for Myrtle Beach Golf, but also just a wonderful individual, and she just gives so much back to this game. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, we get given so much through this game, enjoyment and fun and all these things that we try to do. But, great spokespersons like Meredith like to give back as well. And so make sure that you go to MyrtleBeachGolfTrips.com in the next little while, over the next month or so, and also MBN.com, and look for her new ebook coming out, Skill Drills, 91 Golf Drills to Improve Your Skill Level and Thrill of the Game. I know it's going to be a great book. And again, thank you, Meredith, for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. I want to take this opportunity as well to thank all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning in. I say this all the time, but I do have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teacher professionals, and authors and entrepreneurs stop by the program, and it's really through their participation and guest appearances that help make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. A special thank you to some of the sponsors and supporters of the program, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com and request your copy of the guide. Some great courses throughout the southeastern part of the United States, from Texas all the way over to Florida.
go to southcoastgolfguide.com. And if you're interested in advertising in Jonathan's publication as well, you can reach him at jonathan@southcoastgolfguide.com. And, of course, my very special guest tonight, Meredith Kirk, great professional. Go to merekirk.com. That's MERE golf.com is her website. And you can also find some great videos, as she pointed out, on Myrtle Beach golftrips.com, and I believe mbn.com is the other site as well. So make sure you go and check those out, and keep an eye out for her book coming out shortly. Thank you to Nikki and Tiffany Litherland. Thank you for all your continued support on the show. Also, Mr. Bernie Pinder, the founder and owner of Ontic Golf. Go to onticgolf.com if you're interested in acquiring a customized putter. Bernie is the man to see about that. Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland, thank you for all of your continued support. A great teacher professional as well as a club fitter, rather. Mr. Peter Doyle over in Ireland. Make sure that you check him out as well at Doyle Golf Solutions. Sean Kelly, of course, the owner of linkedgolfers.com. Great social media platform on LinkedIn. He brought that out to the general forum, if you will, of the internet. Go to linkedgolfers.com. Some great information there. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Central right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. God bless.